Question is about the fact that they accuse the council of not listening to the people around some big ticket item decisions. Would you be in favour for a binding referendum on the second bridge route or on similar major projects in the future? Angus, start with this.
On a binding referendum?
A binding referendum.
I don't believe I would be, but when you look up the survey that we did, I know the result of the survey on those problems, and if that transferred to a binding referendum in the same proportion, those projects will still be going ahead. And that's public, you can have a look at it yourself. Binding referendums are fairly tough. I actually want us to get the communication correct. On the big ticket item, the really big one that we had, sir, you had our photographs splashed all over the front page of the paper, if you remember. I reckon that was really good. Although I must say you got my wrong side that day. But thank you for doing that. So yes, I don't see the need for them once we get our communication and our processes right. Our processes are actually follow a legal set down legally in the Local Government Act and the Resource Management Act, and we have always followed those. But the problem is sometimes there's a gap of 1 or 2 years between the processes, and that frustrates the people. So we may have to move closer. As the chairperson of the project group for the stadium, when we went to take an extra step on the stadium, we had all the user groups in to see if we had it right, and they made a number of alterations. That's actually how we got the fourth pool for the people to do the walking exercise in the warmer pool. That I'm probably of the age that I'll be able to use it soon. So those are the sort of things that are already happening.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
To answer the specific question, no, I'm not in favour of a binding referendum on the bridge. And
just in general terms, but the bridge was just one example.
Okay. No, I'm not. My position is, and my belief is, that you elect councillors to look at a whole range of information, get all the information they can, and make informed decisions on your behalf. If we were to come back for a referendum on a whole lot of the big projects that we look at, we wouldn't make progress at all. I'm certainly in favour of improved communication. I've already said that. I'm certainly in favour of doing everything we can to take people with us, but I'm also in favour of your elected representatives getting on with the job. So unless it were a really, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, unless it were a really life and death type sticky situation, I would not be in favour of binding referenda in general terms.
Thank you. Russell?
The worry is all three of us are going to agree. I think from my memory, which is not always good, we may have had a referendum on fluoride, did we, years ago in our water supply? So the town has had a referendum for it, but with a committed approach to communication, but communication's not only about talking, it's actually about listening, and I think that's a big part of what this communication needs to be. With a committed approach to that, and with a common sense approach to how things are tackled, I don't think there'll need to be binding referendums.
Okay, thank you. Oh, well, we'll agree. So we don't need any rebuttals here. That's good. Moving right along then. Right, next question is around alcohol. The council is currently working on the new local alcohol policy. What are your views on the hospitality opening hours and general alcohol consumption policies in the district?
I have a vested interest here, I guess, because I am and have been the chairperson of the Ashburton Community Alcohol and Drug Service for some years. What we are going through at the moment is putting the local alcohol policy together, and that's a requirement by law. We are doing that with input from the Ministry of Health, from the people who run the licensed premises in this town, from ACADS, from council, and we have all of those people around the table discussing the pros and the cons and the hours and the way the alcohol policy should be applied. We have had, I believe, some responsibilities thrown at us from central government, and we haven't always had the ability to make decisions at the local level about licensing of premises and where those premises should be and what the hours should be and all of those things. That is changing. This draft policy, which we are meeting on in a few days' time, will be coming out to people for consultation. I won't go into all of the detail of it here, but I think I can say with some confidence that it does give us a better chance of making decisions at the local level. It puts responsibility back on us, and we will be able to control some of those things better. I think I can also say that we've got a good spirit of cooperation from the licensed premises. The police are also involved here, obviously, from all of the parties around the table to try to manage alcohol responsibly in this district. And we need to. Alcohol is a problem in this district amongst many, and it has been ever since I've been here, which is 25 years. I spent most of my time in schools working with young people. We know about the perils of alcohol. The policy is in draft form now. It will be coming out to people to have a look at very soon. Have a look at it.
As a father of two teenage boys who, in probably 2 shorter years' time, will be maybe looking to go and try and find a drink somewhere, I'm all in favour of the work that the council are doing at the moment on the alcohol policy. If we can restrict the ease of access to alcohol, I think will be a big step forward, and I look forward to having a look at this draft policy when it comes out, and hopefully in the near future being able to work closely with these guys on this policy as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, I can remember back to the 6 o'clock swoop. Then I can remember back to when I was 22, the age was lowered to 18. But it was always more fun sneaking in at 20 when the age was 21 than it was actually having a drink at 21. But to give you an idea of my philosophy on this, I would actually favour a 2 a.m. closing. I don't know what's in the policy yet, because that hasn't come out in the committee stage that Don's on, or what their recommendation is, but I'm leaning more to a 2 o'clock because I think that would allow better policing of it, although the police do say that that is a wee bit early. They would prefer 3 a.m, but because of the workers down at Canterbury Meat Packers are coming home and they like to have a drink after work. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, it's quite good actually not to be disturbing the neighbours. So if you wanted a guide from me, I think we've got sufficient outlets in the Ashburton town and the other towns, but I am bending personally towards a 2 a.m. shutdown. Okay.
Can I ask the other candidates to what their personal, I know you're on the committee, but what are your personal view? What is a decent closing time for the district?
Well, I think there are 2 aspects to it. One is the hour at which you shut off, but before that there is the opportunity to have what is known as a one-way door system, where people who leave licensed premises can't re-enter licensed premises and keep drinking somewhere else. So the proposal we are coming up with is to set a time, and I won't divulge that because we're still at the draft form and the draft isn't finished. We are setting a time, but we are also setting a one-way door restriction for, I think from memory, an hour and a half before that, where if people leave the premises, that's it. And so I think there is an ability to control, even if you have a slightly later time, there's an ability to control some of the behaviour around the access to alcohol at that point. So there's a variety of strategies, they need to be applied together. It's not just the time at which you close, it's also availability, access, all of those other things. But personally, I believe we've got to do both. We've got to set a time and we've got to have a one-way door policy that applies before then.
Russell, what's a good time for you?
Time's a tricky one. I really do like the one-way door policy. I think once you leave a bar come a certain hour of the early mornings, you shouldn't be allowed back into another one. It's time to make your way home. But I also believe there needs to be some more accountability on these establishments. If they're throwing people out onto the road at 3 o'clock in the morning when they close, they need to take some accountability for those actions that happen after that. And when that starts to happen, they may start to look at some of the things they're doing.
Okay. Well, throwing it out there, if for all candidates, if it's, you know, I think a lot of people agree with that, but if how far does it have to go? If your bar is here, how many blocks over are you responsible for what they're doing? If they decide to pick a fight 2 blocks down, how do you control it? And does, the secondary question is, what role does the council have in that? Or the police? Where do you see the managing of that? All three, please take turns.
Well, you can't expect licensed premises to be responsible for the behaviour of people who leave their premises and are 2 or 3 blocks away. There are other strategies. I see it, there's a range of strategies have to be applied here. The police are part of that. We also have our ambassadors who move around the streets late at night and pick up situations, deal with situations. There's a town watch group that also monitors what's going on in the town. So it's a range of strategies. Of course, the licensed premises have to take some responsibility. They are the hosts, they have to watch the behaviour and the state of intoxication of the people who are drinking in their place, and they have to apply some restrictions insofar as they can. But it is not on and not possible to expect somebody serving drinks here to monitor what's happening 2 or 3 blocks away. It's all of the strategies and all of the people involved working together that will manage this situation. And we can't just set about blaming the licensed premises. They're part of the problem, they're also part of the solution, but they're not the only part.
Okay. Angus or Russell, answer that?
Being covered.
Okay.
Yes.
All good? Right. Excellent. Next question is about the economic boom and the tensions that may bring with it. Canterbury is experiencing an economic boom on the back of our agricultural sector, and especially because of the success of the dairy industry. What are your views on the increasing tension between those economic interests and their potential environmental impacts? And this is especially around water issues. So what are your views on controlling that? We're starting with Russell, salmon fishing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for picking me to start this one. But yes, as a passionate salmon fisherman, I am concerned about the waterways and the levels that they get to at the height of summer. But I've got an Environment Canterbury form in front of me, and one of their strategy visions is to enable present and future generations to gain the greatest social, economic, recreational and cultural benefit from our water resources with an environmentally sustainable framework. But to put all that in place, there's no easy solution. We understand that the economy of Ashburton is booming, and it is on the back of dairying, and with that it's brought new jobs, new growth, and we need to support that, but there does need to be a balance.
Well, I wish to make an apology. I wish to apologise for helping all those people get water when I was an Ecan councillor. I'm serious about that, because that's obviously a problem. There's not actually a problem, ladies and gentlemen, because we all live off the back of that. We have actually better shops because of the water that flows to our farms, because we have people that can afford to buy more regularly. Even used to sell more newspapers because there are more people here. So on a farm that was dryland farm that was 250 or 300 acres, supporting one family, can now support 2 or 3. So instead of selling 1 newspaper, sir, you can sell 3 newspapers.
Good try.
Great opportunity there. Yes, much is made of it. I challenge you, ladies and gentlemen, to go and drink out of the streams at the coast. They're quite safe. I've done it because they're drinking water quality. But there's a lot of fear in the farming community at the moment about nitrates. Nitrates in the build-up in the underground water. When the first pioneers came and ploughed the tussocks and then ploughed the white clover over a number of years ago and let it fallow all winter, before they planted the wheat, actually injected more nitrates into the groundwater than what we do today. Ian McKenzie, the president of Federated Farmers at the time, almost a swear word, he actually said one day that crappy croppers. And he was actually right, because the first 100 years of the development of this district was dryland farming. Once we got the water here, we were actually able to start balancing the spreading of fertiliser and the growing of grass. One of the things you use in stormwater control, ladies and gentlemen, is you set up a swale. What do you put in the swale? You put grass to treat the impurities that enter the aquifers. There are one or two myths out there. The world standard is 22. That's a median. We're actually looking at doing half that here in this district. We're actually waiting for the zone committee to come back with their report, and one of the challenges when they came to council last time was I asked if they could bring an economic analysis, because out there circulating in the community is a figure, and it's $100 million less produce each year from our farms if the zone group and the ECAN get this wrong. That's less papers for you to sell, sir. It's less goods in the shop that are moving. So that's the conundrum we find. There is a balance. On the other hand, as you know, I'm a staunch advocate of doing something with the water aces, so we can actually leave the water in the river and have good, clean water for people to drink and good, clean water for the farmers to go about their daily lives. Because at the end of the day, on these farms today, we actually have processing factories. Yes, a dairy shed is a food processing factory. Yes, a farmer at Highbank washing vegetables is a food processor, and they must not have water race water tipped over those vegetables to wash them to go to Christchurch. They actually need good, clean, quality water. So another 4,000 or 5,000 litres a second coming down the Ashburton River. That will be wetter. That will make it more pleasant crossing the bridge from Tingwall to Ashburton. We'll get joy in the morning because there'll be more water in the river.
Thank you.
Well, I think as with all things, this is a matter of balance, isn't it? There is no question, but we are reliant on agriculture and dairying in particular in this district. It is the lifeblood of the district. Nobody would dispute that. What we have to balance that with is the management and use of water, stock water, irrigation water, river water. And there's an enormous amount of work going on to do just that right now. There are Canterbury-wide strategies, there are local strategies. Many of you will know Matthew Hall, who's leading a group that's looking at the use of water in this district. Neil Brown, Councillor Neil Brown, sits on the zone committee for our water, representing our council on the wider management group. So both things are essential. We must maintain and sustain and support the farming and the dairying, because that's what we live from. But we must also look after the water and the use of the water to ensure that the ground, the land, the environment, the rivers are properly catered for as well. Our council does a lot of that work already. We're clearly involved in a number of those initiatives. We're also looking at biodiversity, setting up funding to allow investigations and projects to be carried out that will allow us to get a better feel for what needs to be done to protect the land and to use that water responsibly as well. It's balance. We've got to have both. It's not a case of one or the other.
Thank you. Russell, Angus, want to add something to it?
I think it's
No, all good? Okay.